So let's start. Tonight's class, as always, is in the memory of Yitzchak Tzvi ben Yosef. His neshama should have an elevation. This lighting is good. Boker Tov. Hello, Art. Hello, TJ. Yeah, they're watching. We have from Australia, from Melbourne, watching us. Baruch Hashem. There it's morning. Okay, you ready? Showtime. So, there's this guy who's selling a donkey. And he tells he's selling it for a tremendous amount of money, $25,000. It's $25,000. Says this donkey, you talk to it listens. Talk to the donkey, it listens. It's not just a regular donkey. This guy seems, wow, exciting. You can buy a donkey, you can talk to it, it will listen to you, it will obey. This is great. The guy pays $25,000, takes the donkey home, and the donkey won't listen to a word he says. Tells it go, it doesn't go. Tells him sit, doesn't sit, doesn't do anything. Finally, he comes back to the guy that sold him the donkey. Says, "You lied to me. I speak to the donkey. What's it to garnish? You know what garnish means? Nothing. It doesn't listen to me." So the guy says, "Of course." He says, "Look, let me talk to you for a second." He walks over to the donkey, takes a stick, whacks the donkey across the back. The donkey starts to walk. So you see, I told you, listens. Says, "You didn't talk to him. You just hit him." Says, No, I spoke to him. But you got to speak a language a donkey understands. Mean. So you got to talk a language a donkey understands. Hello, Chana Fredo. Hello, Susie. Hello, Joseph. Okay. So, my friends, we're going to talk about a talking donkey. Why are we talking about a talking donkey? Because this week's Torah reading is a double reading, actually, Chukas and Balak. And the whole story of Balak is about Bilam, who was hired. He was a very, very famous non-Jewish sorcerer, magician, actually a prophet that had real legitimate powers of prophecy. And God, do we need more copies? We have. God gave him real legitimate powers of prophecy. In fact, God made a counterbalance in the world that if you have Moses, there has to be also a non-Jewish prophet, or else it's not fair. Free choice requires some kind of a balance. Thank you, a balance between good and evil. And so, as holy as it says that there was never a prophet in the Jewish people. Like, come be Yisrael. In the Jewish people, there never came a prophet like Moshe. And the Medrash tells us that in the Jewish people, there was no prophet like Moshe. But in the non-Jews, there was a prophet even greater, Bilam. Anyway, last year's class on this week, I don't know greater. He was as great as Moshe, meaning he was greater than any other Jewish prophet. When the Torah says that there was no other Jewish prophet to be as great as Moshe, it's excluding a non-Jewish prophet, Bilam, who was as great. I don't say greater. I shouldn't say that. But greater than any other prophet that was equal on the level of Moses in prophecy. And last year's class, on this week, we actually did a class on Bilam, the man that knew God but didn't believe. That was last year's class. It's on YouTube. It's on my, go back on Facebook. I have to go back a lot. But it's on my YouTube channel. You can watch it on Bilam. So tonight we're not going to talk about Bilam. We're not going to talk about the guy that was given unbelievable gifts and talents by God and managed to corrupt them in such an unbelievably unholy way. That's not what we're going to talk about. What we will talk about is his sidekick. Literally, the animal that he kicked, the donkey that he was riding on. Okay? Now this donkey, what? This donkey was his lover. We'll talk about that. We shall talk about that, actually. This donkey is the donkey. It's not just a donkey, it's a donkey. But let's start from the beginning, because we have to go in order. So I'll give you the whole story, I promise. So stay with me, my friends. So, hello, everyone's watching from all over the world. Thank you for saying hi. I appreciate all the comments. Okay, so the messengers of Balak. Balak is the king of Moab. He's very worried about the Jewish people that are massing, coming by the border, coming to the lands of Israel. He knows that their secret power is our praying. He knows that how have the Jewish people been able to succeed at what they've done? Because we have the ability of our mouth to pray to God. So Balak, the king, says, let me use their own power against them. Let me hire a magician who can curse them with the power of speech. He sends messengers to Bilam's house, And they ask Bilam to come back with them to the land of Moab to curse the Jewish people. Well, I don't know to Moab, so where the Jewish people are camped. Now, this is important to the story, so I'm going through because it's going to be important. Bilam knows he can't do anything without God's permission. So what does he say to them? Stay overnight. God didn't appear to Bilam during the day. He could have just pulled him up. So stay here overnight. Hopefully God will appear to me during the night in the dream, and I'll be able to get permission to go with you to curse the Jewish people. And God appears to Bilam in the dream. And says to Bilam, who are these men that are with you? Now this gets Bilam excited because God seemingly doesn't know everything, because God is asking the question, even though we know this is God's style. When God wants to engage in conversation, God doesn't just right away attack you. Like, for example, when Adam and Eve ate from the tree of knowledge, God doesn't say, why did you eat from the tree? God says, Ayeka, where are you? God opens the conversation. So to hear God opens the conversation, but God allows man to stumble. He thinks God doesn't know everything. Here's his opportunity. He says, I was asked to go and curse these Jewish people. And God says, you can't go. You can't go. So he has no choice. In the morning, he tells them, sorry, guys. God said, no. They go home disappointed. But Bilam didn't say it like that. I wasn't exact in the way he said it. He didn't say God said, I can't go. To be precise, he said, God said, I can't go with you. With you, I can't go, implying you guys are not important enough for me to be worthy. God is protecting me. And God's saying I need to get more important messengers with more money in their bags to get me to come. And because he presented it that way, so the King Balak sent even more prominent and more distinguished messengers with an open checkbook, signed blank check, whatever you want. The number is yours. Give us the number. You can write the check. It's already signed. Bilam says, wait overnight. Even all the gold and the silver in the world, no matter how much you're willing to pay, I can't go without God's permission. God appears to him the second time, the second night. And this time God says, if you want to go, you can go. But remember, you can only say whatever I tell you to say, nothing that I don't tell you to say. Now, Bilam, instead of getting the hint, he assumes I'm going to convince God to allow me to curse the Jewish people. He got a foot in the door, and he's very excited, and off they go. So he wakes up early in the morning. Let's look at the text. Now let's go to the text inside. So they wake up early in the morning. One second. So here we're in chapter 22, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, chapter 22, verse 21. Vayakam Bilam babayker. Early in the morning, Bilam arose, and he saddled his she-donkey and went with the Moabite dignitaries. Now, he's getting very excited. Why is he saddling his donkey himself? Well, I see a question here. God is opening a discussion with us. No, God always opens. We'll answer that question later. So he's saddling the donkey himself. Why is he saddling the donkey himself? Why is he saddling the donkey? It says the Torah is telling us that he saddled the donkey. Why is that important to know? He did saddle the donkey. You need to know. And he also put on the shoes and tied his shoelaces. I don't have shoelaces back then. I just made it up. I'm saying he put on his pants and he ate breakfast. Why is the fact that he saddled his donkey important to the story? So actually, he was trying to counter Avraham Avinu. When God came to Abraham, God said to Abraham, I want you to go and slaughter your son Isaac. Bring him to me as an offering. What does the Torah tell us happened in the morning? Early in the morning, Abraham himself gets up early. He saddles his donkey himself and he loads on the wood, the firewood, and the knife and everything for the offering, minus the animal, of course, because that'll be Isaac. And Avram already saddled his donkey himself early in the morning. And as the Torah tells us then, Avram had many, many servants that could have helped him saddle the donkey. But to do the command of God, he wanted to do it himself. So here, Hashem says to Bilam, you're too late. Your enthusiasm that you can't wait even, like, when you have you're so excited you can't sleep, like you're the whole night you're waiting to go on whatever exciting trip you're going to go on. You're going to Israel and you can't sleep a whole night. So Here, Bilam was so excited, he's waiting for the moment. The God said, I could go early in the morning. God says, your enthusiasm for evil has already been countered by the enthusiasm of Abraham for good. Okay. And this has already been given to the Jewish people. It won't work. But Bilam doesn't care. And Bilam himself, with the dignitaries, is going on the donkey that he saddled for himself. Now you'll notice, by the way, that Avram didn't use a donkey to ride on. Avram used a donkey just to carry his stuff, to carry the firewood, etc. Bilam is himself riding on the donkey. It's not relevant for I'm not going to get into tonight's class. I'm just pointing that out. There is a significance there, but for another time. Anyway, what happens? God sees that Bilam is going with the dignitaries. He's going to curse the Jews. Is God happy? Is he upset? Is he angry? What do you think God feels? God is angry. Verse 22. God's wrath flared because he was going. And an angel of the Lord stationed himself on the road to thwart him. And he was riding on his she-donkey, and his two servants were with him. Because here again, we're reminded he's riding on the road on his donkey with his two servants. Do you remember that comparison? When Avram saddled his donkey, who was traveling with him? Also, the Torah says when Avram was going, Shnei Na'ar of Imo, there were two lads with him, Eliezer and the other son Yishmael. But the point is, the language is exactly the same. He's saddling his donkey himself. He's taking two lads with him, literally trying to copy, and therefore to not only to duplicate, but to replicate or to exchange, rather, what I want to say, to exchange the love that Avram showed with the curse that he's hoping that God will allow him to curse the Jewish people. So he has his two and people with him, and they're riding. Comes this angel. Rashi tells us something important, and remember this. I'm going to go back to this later in this discussion. Rashi tells him, what kind of angel did God send to thwart him? God has all kinds of angels, right? He has Gabriel, the angel of punishment, of justice, of judgment, of compassion, of kindness. And what's the kind of angel sent? Not one of kindness, not one of judgment, but one of mercy. Rachamim, the third kind. There's chesed, there's gvura, and there's rachamim. An angel of mercy, as a name that's used in this verse, is a name of mercy. Why does God send an angel of mercy to this sinner Bilam? Because God wanted to prevent him from sinning. For should he sin, he would perish. Remember this, my friend. I'm going to go back to this. God is sending an angel of mercy to stop him from sinning. Okay. Now, what happens next in the story? I'm not going to read it all inside, but because I'm sure you're all familiar with it, and I want to have time. I want to focus on the main message. They're driving. They're riding along. The angel is in the road, blocking. So what does the donkey do? First time the donkey goes off into the field. Just goes on the shoulder. Yeah, using the modern day language. Goes on the shoulder, bypasses the cars, goes on the shoulder. And Bilam, even though he should have been smart, he should have said, why he was a spiritually sensitive person. He was a smart man. He should have asked himself, why is this donkey going off on the side? But he didn't. So the donkey went off to the side, and he hits the donkey to get the donkey back onto the road. Okay. They continue traveling. The angel saw that that they passed on the shoulder. So the angel goes a second time. And now the angel is standing on the road that's narrow with walls on the side. So here's a construction going on. So there's like cones, or there's not a wide shoulder. And the second time the angel sees the donkey sees the angel. Bilam does not see the angel, but the donkey does. And again, the donkey goes to the side, but this time it scrapes the leg of Bilam against the wall, against the side where he was trying to pass. Now, I want to tell you that wall that they passed was not just a random wall. It was actually a very historically important place that they were passing at that moment. You know where they were passing? If you remember, many years before, Yaakov and Lavan made a peace treaty. Yaakov was running away from his father-in-law Lavan, and God appeared to Lavan in a dream for the sake of Yaakov, just like God appeared in a dream to Bilam for the sake of the Jewish people. And when they meet in the morning, Yaakov and Lavan make peace. Remember that story? And they build a big monument of stones. It's called Galed. A gal is a mound that aid will stand as a testimony that I won't pass over this way to harm you and your family, and you won't pass over this way to harm me and my family. And as Bilam is a descendant of Lavan. And as Bilam is passing by the Gal Eid, past this monument of stones that was built as a peace treaty between Yaakov and Lavan, it's at that place where the angel is standing blocking the road, where the donkey has no choice but to veer to the side, scraping, painfully reminding Bilam of the monument of peace, that peace treaty that had been made generations before between Yaakov and Lavan. Again, Bilam does not get the hint. Again, he uses his stick to hit the donkey, to get the donkey to talk a language the donkey will understand, to get the donkey back onto the road. That was the second time. And then comes the third time. And now the third time the angel stands right in the middle of a very narrow road. There's no room to turn, not to the right, not to the left. Saying that Bilam can't go anywhere. He's stuck over here. And the donkey has no choice, can't go anywhere. So what does the donkey do? It stops. It crouches down and stops. Donkeys can be very stubborn, they stop. At that moment, Bilam got very, very angry, and he starts to hit the donkey. The third time that Bilam is hitting the donkey. He's hitting the donkey, and what happens? All of a sudden, a tremendous miracle takes place. A tremendous miracle. One of the great miracles of the Bible. At that moment, the Lord, verse 28, the Lord opened the mouth of the she-donkey. And she, the donkey, says to Bilam, what have I done to you that you have struck me these 3 times? So Bilam says to the donkey, for you have humiliated me. If I had a sword in my hand, I would kill you right now. Okay? Now, by the way, let me stop before I go further. You already see here the tremendous shame of Bilam. Because what happened over here? Bilam was hired by these dignitaries that are riding behind Bilam to curse the Jewish people. And yet Bilam is forced to admit to the donkey that I'm powerless to do anything to you because I don't have a sword in my hand to kill you. What do you mean? You have the power of your mouth. You could say abracadabra and turn the donkey into a snail, turn into a frog. I'm saying, do anything you want officially. And yet, at this moment, the donkey causes a tremendous shame and humiliation to Bilam. That Bilam, who's going to destroy a nation with the power of his mouth, can't control his own donkey. He can't control his own donkey, and the donkey is making fun of him and saying to him, you're saying that you would kill me with your sword if you would have a sword, but your power of your mouth is obviously not that great. Now, before I read you the next verse, I'll tell you another conversation that happened between Bilam and these dignitaries that had come to travel with him. So in the morning, he's saddling his donkey all by himself. So the dignitaries, the messengers, the ministers that had come to encourage him to come to curse the Jewish people, they ask him, you don't have a horse? You don't have a wagon? Like, what are you they thought Bilam's an important guy. They're paying him a lot of money. Imagine you go hire the top lawyer in the country. Okay? And you guys are going to drive to court together. You go to his office, you're going to court, and the guy gets into the old used Toyota Sienna minivan. You know what I'm saying? Top lawyer in the country in the Sienna minivan. You're like, something's a little fishy over here, right? It wouldn't smell right. You go to the guy's office, he's sitting in a little, you're hiring the top lawyer in the country. You expect the guy to have, I don't know, at least a Tesla. You know what I'm saying? Instead, here is Bilam, the most important guy. He's not having a horse, not a wagon, not a chariot, not a stable, not a chauffeur to drive him. He himself is saddling a donkey. People didn't normally ride donkeys. So then, before this incident between the conversation, him and the donkey, so he says to them, I have a horse, but the horse is out to pasture. I wasn't expecting you to come, so I took the horse out to pasture. To the meantime, it was short notice. I don't want to waste time, so I'm taking my donkey in the meantime. That's what he told me. So now the donkey starts to continue to humiliate Bilam. So let's go back to the text, verse number 30. So the she-donkey continues talking to Bilam, who's been forced to admit that he can't even punish his own donkey with his mouth. And she says to Bilam, Am I not your she-donkey on which you have ridden since you first started until now? Say the truth, he says to Bilam. I am the only animal you've ever owned. You don't have a horse. You don't have a stable. You're the only animal. And he's forced to admit, yes, it's true. And then he says, or she says to him, Ha-haskein hiskanti. Have I ever done bad to you? And here she's actually hinting to the, have I ever not listened to you? Have I ever hurt you? Have I ever once before gone off the road and you lost steering? Never happened before. The fact that I went off the road and you couldn't control me to stay on the straight path of the road, in all of the years that you've been riding me, it never happened before. That should have been a sign that there's something wrong over here. And then he says, to do like this to you. Which is to do like this to you. He was hinting to him, he's saying explicitly, and not only am I the one that you ride during the day, I'm also the one that you ride at night. I'm the one I am the one that you've been having an affair with. I forgot the words here. But Bilam actually was having an affair. He had there's a name for when you have sex with animals. Bestiality. So Bilam actually had a relationship with his donkey. It says to him, have I not laid with you at night where you've used me for your own very, very disgusting, immoral pleasures? And again, Bilam is forced to admit, yes, he has.
This is who God talks to.
What?
And this is who God prophesies has speaking for you.
Correct. This is the person who's corrupted his divine gifts in a terrible, terrible, terrible way. And all this, he's forced to admit the truth, and he says this never happened before. And so at that moment, when Bilam is forced to admit to all the people behind him that he's never experienced this, where this donkey's been loyal to him all these years, and how does he repay the loyalty? By beating his donkey. At that moment, the Lord opens Bilam's eyes. Vayar, and he sees the Malach Hashem Nitzav Baderach. He sees the angel of God is standing in the road, and the sword is drawn in his hand. And he gets off the donkey, he bows, and he prostrates himself on his face in front of the angel. I thought I had copied the next verse, but I didn't. But then the verse continues, and the angel of God says to him, why have you beaten your she-donkey these 3 times? Behold, it was me, the angel, that came out to stop you. I'm the one that tried to stop you, and because you were rushing to go on your journey, and you should not have been rushing. If your donkey would not have stopped, what would have happened? I would have killed you instead. So you actually need to be thankful to your donkey. Your donkey's what saved you from death. If you would have ridden into me, your road rage, on a road rage, I would have killed you. The donkey saved your life, and the donkey, she saw me. And the donkey turned away these 3 times, meaning that Bilam had to admit that the donkey was able to see the angel that he had not been able to see.
And the dignitaries saw
all this.
They didn't see the angel.
They didn't see. No, they didn't see. Now, when Bilam is bowing down on the ground, I guess they know what he's doing. He's speaking, and he says, Bilam says to the angel, I have sinned. If the rest of the story is not relevant for the donkey part, but Bilam says, I have sinned, and if you want me not to go, I won't go. And the angel says, and he's hinting to the angel, God said I can go, and you're an angel, you're going to tell me I can't go. So the angel says, okay, you can do whatever you want. And here's a very beautiful idea. We've talked, this was in last year's class, and I've talked about this many times in sermons, that God lets us go on the path we choose for ourselves. It's a very beautiful Talmud. It's not the main theme of tonight, but God lets us go on the path we choose. You can go wherever you want to go. You want to self-destruct? God can't stop you from self-destructing. Because if God could force you not to self-destruct, then you wouldn't have free choice. It would take away the whole point of our existence. So God can give you hints, and God can send messengers, but at the end of the day, the angel won't tell you don't go. The angel will let you go. Either you'll get the hint and you won't go, or you won't get the hint and you go where you want to go, and God will enable you, and God will the ability for you to continue in your destructive way. No, Balak is the king and Bilam is a sorcerer. They're not related. Yeah, we're not talking about that now. Okay, by the way, I have to tell you a sad part of the story. I know some of you are not going to like the next thing I'm going to say. You know what happens to this donkey afterwards?
He gets killed.
He gets killed. The angel, no. Aww. The donkey gets killed. Why does he get killed? Because the donkey had been used to humiliate Bilam. And God is teaching us a lesson here in human dignity. First of all, there's two lessons here. First lesson is God is teaching us a lesson in caring for animals. What's the very first thing the angel says to Bilam? Not why are you going to curse the Jewish people? Yeah. The first thing the angel's concerned about, his first question to Bilam is, why did you hit the donkey? The angel is worried about the dignity of the animal and the pain and the suffering of the animal, and the fact that he hit the animal caused pain to the animal. So the angel's saying, why did you do that? Why did you hit the donkey? So we see on one hand, we see the importance of caring for animals. At the same time, you know what else we see? That God cares for the dignity of human beings even more. And because this donkey now would forever be associated with the shame and the embarrassment of a human being, God had the angel kills the donkey that no one should look at this donkey and say, that's the donkey that talked and embarrassed Bilam in front of these important dignitaries, where the donkey revealed all the secrets of Bilam's lack of money and lack of horses, and how Bilam slept with his donkey, and how Bilam lied about his donkey, and how Bilam couldn't control his donkey because the donkey could see an angel that Bilam couldn't see. So to avoid allowing that kind of embarrassment to take place in the life of Bilam, the donkey is killed. I know, it's not a happy ending. Not a happy ending. Not all stories have happy endings, unfortunately. Okay, so now, my friends, I'm going to ask you a very, very simple question. Very simple question. So now we're going to talk about the donkey. What does this donkey help in the story? It's very interesting. It's a very interesting story. The donkey starts talking. Of course, talking donkeys is fascinating. This is long before Disney and all the talking animals that whatever, right? Before you have movies of talking animals, so you have a talking donkey. It's very interesting. Fine. But God doesn't do miracles for no reason. Every time in the Torah we have a miracle, we know what the miracle accomplishes. There's a reason why there's a miracle. So God split the sea. Why did God split the sea? To take us across the ocean, right? Why did God bring bread from the heaven? So we'll have food to eat, etc., etc. Any miracle. Last week we read about the opening of the earth to swallow up Korach and the dust and the Navir. We talked about that last week. It was a tremendous miracle. The Torah tells us why there was a miracle. Rashi explains. Moshe prayed they should die an unnatural death because they were so obstinate and so intense with their hatred. They needed a unique kind of death. So we understand the reason for the miracle. What is the purpose? What is the objective of a miracle of God changing the rules of nature to allow a donkey to talk to a human being? What's the objective of what's the point of a talking donkey? Especially since it didn't even help. Did the talking donkey change Bilam's mind? No. Anyway, God would have to open up the eyes of Bilam to show him the angel. And the angel would anyway talk to Bilam. So forget the donkey part. Send an angel to block him and let him see the angel and talk to the angel. Either the angel will convince him not to go or won't convince him. If you think about the story for a minute, the donkey talking actually has no impact on the trajectory of the story whatsoever. So what is it doing in the story? It seems like God made a miracle for no purpose, for no value, for no benefit. Right? Yes? Do you understand my question, Randy? Give me a look.
Oh, because there was a purpose.
Yeah, but what's the purpose? Oh, you're going to soon find out. You're right. Now, I want to clarify. There's really two parts of the question. Number one is God has to anyway open the eyes of Bilam so he can see the angel. Number two is, we already mentioned this, God doesn't stop Bilam from going after he sees the angel. So if God decided, I'm going to stop Bilam from going to curse the Jews, and God did a miracle to stop Bilam from going, I understand the point of the miracle. But here God does a miracle that A, wasn't necessary, because he anyway opens the eyes of Bilam to see the angel, and B, is ineffective. It's like a double question. You understand? It's unnecessary and it's ineffective.
Show us the free will that we have.
Well, the donkey part doesn't really show us the free will.
I mean, no, because Bilam.
He had free will already before. God already told him before, don't go, but if you choose to go, you can go. The miracle of the donkey is not really adding in any way, seemingly, to our understanding of a man's free will. So we need to understand what is a lesson for us. When the Torah tells us a story, especially a story as strange, as unique, as memorable as a talking donkey, there's got to be some lesson for us in the story. Or else, what's it doing in the Torah? So, what's the point? What's the objective of a talking donkey? And by the way, you'll notice that even Rashi, who explains these kinds of questions, is not bothered by the question. There's no explanation in the commentary, in Rashi anyway, why there's a need for a donkey to talk. Like, what is it doing there? No explanation. Before I answer your question, or my question maybe, I guess, now it's all of our questions because we all have the question, I want to make the question even stronger. I want to really rub it into you that it's such an obvious question you never thought about, but it's an obvious question. There's a fairly famous Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, in Ethics of Our Fathers. Right? You all heard of Ethics of Our Fathers, right? Pirkei Avos. So there's a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. You know what the Mishnah says? Chapter 5, which by the way happens to be last week's chapter, Pirkei Avos. So in Pirkei Avos, chapter 5, Mishnah number 6, it says as follows. Asar dvarim nivru ben hashmashos. There were 10 things that were created at twilight. Twilight is a very interesting time in Jewish law. See, we don't know the exact moment that one day ends and the next day begins. So we have an in-between period of dusk in the evening. It's after the sun has set, but before night has fallen. And during that transition state, we assume it could be either day. So on Friday night, we start Shabbat at the beginning of this twilight time, right? We light candles by sunset. We do it before sunset, but by sunset. And Shabbat doesn't end until the end of twilight, after the stars come out, after night has already certainly begun. So God does know the exact moment when Shabbat begins. So the Mishnah is telling us that after the sun was already setting, it's Bein Hashmashos, it's twilight. You know, that last minute rush. It's already after the time to light candles. When to humans who will look like it's already Shabbos, God is still busy. Even God was busy. Erev Shabbat, that last minute. If you ever go to a religious home and see they're running and they're coming, and like, now it's the middle of the summer. Shabbos is not till 8 o'clock. They're running and they're going. So God did that too. He's running right before Shabbat. God is running around trying to get everything ready for Shabbat, for the creation of the world. Says the Mishnah, as Shabbat is about to begin, God remembers, whoops, I forgot a few things. Still a few more things I need to do before the world will be perfect. Before I can say, God rested, Vayinafash, and he created the idea of tranquility in the universe. Before that, there's a few more things left in the world that need to be finished, and then the world will be ready. What are these 10 things that God created at twilight on the first Friday of history? Says the Mishnah, the mouth of the earth that swallowed Korah. That was the parsha last week. The mouth of Miriam's well. The well of Miriam that traveled the Jewish people, that water flowed out of a rock. We're going to be reading about in this week's Torah reading as well. The mouth of Bilam's donkey. The mouth of Bilam, and it continues, the rainbow, the month from heaven, important stuff. The opening of the mouth of the earth to swallow Korah, we get it. That was the water of the well of Miriam. I can understand why Friday afternoon, before Shabbat's about to begin, God says, oh yeah, we better make sure we have water for the Jews in the desert. Same thing, the man, the bread from heaven. God created Friday right before Shabbat. The rainbow was created Friday right before Shabbat. One of these things is the talking donkey. God says, hold on. I can't go into Shabbat just yet. The world is missing something. What's the world missing? A talking donkey. I made a donkey. Now the world is complete. Now we're ready for Shabbos. So what does this talking donkey add to the universe that until this donkey was made, God himself couldn't bring in Shabbos? What? That's not answering the question. They're just throwing a word. How does the fact that God says, I can't bring in Shabbat, I'm missing something. What am I missing? A donkey that seemingly will be pretty cool. It'll be a precursor to Disney, but it won't do anything. It won't accomplish anything. It's not really changing the trajectory of the story in any way. So why is this missing the Erev Shabbat? God says, I can't finish the world until this is made. So, you can always explain that the world needs some talking donkeys. There's a lot of, going to Shabbat, you go to some synagogue, you get a donkey, gets up on the podium, starts to speak. Even the donkey can talk, so, but that's not, so here's the answer. Here's the explanation. God is never willing to give up on anybody. God is never willing to give up on anybody. Even a sinner. Even a sinner as corrupt, as morally repugnant, as Bilam, who is having bestiality with his donkey and lying about it. Even a sinner on the level of Bilam, God says, I want to do everything I can to try and help him find the path to teshuvah, to find the path to repentance, to find the path to a proper, dignified, good life. That's what God says to himself. And therefore, God was ready to alter the very nature of the animals. God is ready to do a miracle, which he only does miracles for a reason, in order to give one more opportunity to help Bilam save himself from his own self-destruction. How is this going to work? The Medrash says that when Bilam heard the talking donkey, it was a message to him. What was the message? If God is control over the power of speech, and God can endow an animal who normally can't talk with the ability to speak, so how much more so that God could stop me from cursing the Jews? Right? If God has the ability to give speech to a donkey, then God could definitely take away my speech and stop me from saying things he doesn't want me to say. But the point is, that's what the Medrash says, but this is the way the Rebbe explains it is this exact idea. God says, I am going to send a message to Bilam. Now, God already told Bilam not to go. Remember the first night when the messengers came, the ministers came? God already told Bilam not to go. But to no avail. Bilam still wanted to go. And as long as he wanted to go, God was not going to stop him from having the choice to do what he wanted to do. God wasn't going to stop him. So when he asked again, God said, okay, I'll let you. But even I'm going to let you doesn't mean I give up on you. When a parent has to let their child, sometimes we can't control our children forever, right? Sometimes we got to allow our children to do things that we disagree with. We got to let them do things that we think are wrong, that we know will be destructive for them. We have no choice. We have to let them grow up and mature on their own. But just because I say I'm going to give my children some space to grow on their own, does that mean I give up on them? Does that mean that I say, well, they're abandoned, that's it? You want to be on your own? Okay. Send me a postcard for Thanksgiving. You know what I'm saying? Doesn't work that way. A parent never ever gives up on their child and says, well, since you're choosing this path, I don't care anymore. And so therefore God says, I told him, he didn't get the hint, he didn't want to listen to me. I'm going to do something that will shock him, will wake him up, will shock him back into reality. What could God do to a man as spiritual, as smart as Bilam, besides for having a dream, that will make him realize what he's doing is destructive? God says the only thing I can do to make him realize what he's about to do is to show him what he looks like. By Bilam going and cursing the Jewish people, you know what Bilam is? A talking donkey. I have to show Bilam how his actions or how his choices will impact him. I need to show him. I need to wake him up. I need to give him an idea of what he's about to do to himself. And because of that, God does a tremendous miracle, and God takes a donkey, and God says to this donkey, I'm going to transform you. All for the sake of maybe knocking some sense, so to say, waking up Bilam to realize what he's about to do. Imagine you're walking, your dog starts talking to you, your puppy starts talking to you, it'll wake you up, right? You get freaked out of your pants. So this, he thought, would finally wake up Bilam to realize, I'm about to do something terrible, and to change his ways. Now, you think Bilam actually changed? So here's another message. God is sending another message to Bilam. If I can change a donkey, even a donkey can change from a non-talking creature to a talking creature, then you can also change from being a sinner to being someone holy and righteous. Part of the problem that we have is sometimes we get trapped into a self-defeating story. We've told ourselves a story about ourselves so many times, we get trapped in that story. We get trapped. I'm lazy, I'm stupid, I'm whatever. A kid loves to say I'm stupid. Why do they love to say I'm stupid? It's not my fault if I do terrible now because that's not me. It's not my fault. That's why I am. I'm stupid. The danger is when we tell a kid you're stupid. Well, I'm getting a little off subject now, but we begin to create this narrative by which a person begins to feel stupid. And when you become stuck in this narrative, you're so convinced of it that you don't try to change because you're convinced I'm unchangeable. Bilam in his mind was a wicked man. He hates the Jews. So God is sending Bilam a message over here. It's not too late to change. Yes, you already signed the contract. Yes, you already started traveling. And yes, there's dignitaries behind you. But guess what? It's never too late to change. Even this donkey can change from an animal into a talking creature. The donkey can change, and you can for sure change. That's what the Sforno explains. That Hashem is ready to shake up nature in order to wake up Bilam from his blindness. And what kind of person are we talking about? We're not talking about a holy tzaddik. We're not talking about a beautiful Jew. We're talking about an anti-Semite, a sinner, a non-Jew, a wicked, evil, disgusting person who's willing to go and curse an entire nation of innocent people and create a genocide just for a nice paycheck. And nevertheless, God says, even this person, I care about him. Even this person, I want him to return to me. And therefore, I'm going to change the laws of nature to send these messages that I control speech, and that if an animal can speak, so I can control your speech. And that if an animal can change its nature, you can change your nature. And you're not stuck being who you were. You can change yourself, just like the animal can change itself. And you can become a different person. I'm willing to do anything I can to wake you up and give you a message that you'll be able to hear in your psychopathic desire to go curse the Jewish people, that you'll hear this message. It's amazing. So when a child is studying the Torah, or studying the Chumash, and we read about a story, and we read about an amazing miracle, and we say, why is God making a miracle that a donkey should talk? What's the point of that? Says the Rebbe, the child has no question. You know why not? Because Rashi already told us, what kind of angel is God sending from heaven against Bilam? If you were God, if some of us in this room were God, we promised an angel of wrath, an angel of punishment. I know many Jews, and they will come with the most ferocious angel of the judgment they have in heaven against Bilam. But Rashi already told us, what kind of angel is God sending to Bilam? Not an angel of punishment, not an angel of judgment, not an angel of labeling. He's sending an angel of rachamim, of mercy, to do whatever he can to wake up Bilam from his moment of sin. So we already know the answer. In those words, Rashi is telling us, what is the objective of the miracle? That there's nothing God won't do to stop a person from sinning. There's nothing God won't use. Nothing God won't do, everything he can to try and help a person become better. To try to change their ways. And if that's true for Bilam, how much more that's true for a tired Yiddish neshama, for a precious Jew, for a family member, for a friend, for a neighbor, for someone that davens with you, for someone that joins you in the same synagogue, in the same community, who you're friends with, who you care about. If God can do so much, and if there's so much effort to save a sinner from sinning, is there ever a limit to how much effort we should spend, to how much effort we should invest to try and help someone become a better person and try and guide them off the wrong path to turn around onto the right path? It's about Friday afternoon, God's about to finish making the entire universe. And God says, hold on a second. The world's not ready yet. I still haven't done everything I can to help a sinner from changing his ways. And as long as I have not yet done everything in my power, including making an animal that doesn't normally talk, a talking donkey, I can't get ready for Shabbos. I can't rest, knowing I haven't done everything I could to try and help this sinner. It's a very powerful message. The world is not complete until every stone is unturned, until every miracle that God can do is done to try and help a person who, by the way, God knows won't even listen. But God says I have to try. If that's true for God, how much more so is that true for us? We don't even know what will happen. We can never say I did enough. We can never say I tried. I already sent an email. I sent a message. I called 3 years ago. He came to me in a dream. I already told him what I think. I did it all the time. Well, listen, if he asked me if he wanted my advice, he would ask me. If he didn't ask me, I'm not gonna get involved. It's a tough message here. You can never say I tried already. I did my part. My hands are up in the air, and I'm done. Never. Shabbos is not coming in until you do something else. Until you did everything you can to try and make it right. Okay. If this doesn't epitomize the Rebbe, right? The whole style of the Rebbe. We just came less than a week ago was Gimel Tammuz. Less than a week ago was the yahrzeit of the 29th yahrzeit of the Rebbe. So I have a few stories that I can share with you about this idea. I'll tell you one or maybe two, and then a closing story. So this story is from Levi Bukit. He came to New York for Hoshana Rabbah. Hoshana Rabbah is the day before Simchas Torah. Now, if you're familiar, Hoshana Rabbah is one of the unknown celebrations of the Jewish people. It's the final day of judgment, and there's a custom to get honey cake for a sweet new year. So the Rebbe person would distribute honey cake to thousands and thousands of visitors that would come for the end of the holidays. Standing in the doorway of a sukkah, people would walk by the sukkah, and he would give them personally a honey cake. So this Chabad Chassid, Levi Bukit, is standing online. In front of him is a hippie. Some random guy with long hair, looks like a total. Somehow, how he landed in 770 to get honey cake, he has no idea who he was. He was there online. You ever see videos? Everyone came by the Rebbe. Jews, non-Jews, hippies, religious Jews, everyone. This hippie standing there with his long hair and his dirty clothing. And then him, and behind him is a Satmar Chassid. A Satmar Chassid, the Satmar Chassidim are very insular. They're very cut off from the rest of the world. They're very strict in their righteousness. We'll say it like that. The Rebbe, he comes before the Rebbe, the guy in front of Levi Bukit, and he gets a piece of lekach, and the Rebbe asks him, what are your plans for Simchas Torah? Night, the hakafos, the dancing. What are your plans? You have any plans to go to shul for Simchas Torah? He says, I have no plans. So the Rebbe said to him, if that's the case, I'll be honored if you came here to 770 for Simchas Torah. He said, okay, we'll see. And he walked on. Levi gets his piece of lekach. The Rebbe doesn't say anything. He takes it. He goes, the regular blessing. He walks. When you walk from the Rebbe, you walk backwards, right? So he's walking backwards. The Satmar Chassid comes. Now, he didn't say anything, but the Rebbe saw. Obviously, the Rebbe knew how to read minds. The Rebbe felt. And the Rebbe says to him, if you're wondering why I care about this person, the hippie that was before them online, coming to Simchas Torah, coming to Shul on Simchas Torah, the answer is in the Sefer of Tehillah L'Moshe. Tehillah L'Moshe is a Sefer that was written by Reb Moshe Teitelbaum, known as the Yismach Moshe, who lived in the early 1800s. He was a student of the Chayza of Lublin, the seer of Lublin, one of the holy tzaddikim in the times of the Alter Rebbe. But he was later he was a Rebbe of Uli in Hungary, and he was a great grandfather of Satmar Rebbe. So in this Sefer Tehillah L'Moshe, there it is the answer. The guy is staring at the Rebbe totally dumbfounded. The Satmar guy is staring at the Rebbe. He has no idea what the Rebbe is referring to. So the Rebbe smiles and says, it's a sefer from one of your Rebbes. The Yismach Moshe is not the Chabad Rebbe. It's a Satmar. He's still staring at the Rebbe. He has no idea what the Rebbe is referring to in the sefer Yismach Moshe. Okay, so in the sefer, okay. So the Rebbe clarifies him. There's a story. In the Yismach Moshe, in the Sefer Tehillah Moshe, written by the Yismach Moshe, there he quotes a story that he heard from his teacher. He said, I heard from my teacher, the Chayzer of Lublin. The Chayzer was a seer. You can see across the world. He had special powers. You could see across the globe. That he heard from his teacher about the Michal of Zlotchev. The Michal of Zlotchev was one of the holy tzaddikim that was in the times of the Baal Shem Tov. Holy man. And he heard, the Chayzer of Lublin told him, that in heaven, Rashi met the father of the Michal of Zlotchev. His name was Itzikel of Durabvich. So this is the story. So that in heaven, Rashi, Shlomo Yitzchaki, asked Reb Itzikel, what did your son do? Reb Michal of Zlotchev was still alive. What did he do to merit that in heaven, that the angels are always in commotion about your son? I mean, there's many tzaddikim, but your son, someone gets a lot of attention in heaven. What did he do to deserve such attention in heaven? That's what Rashi asked Reb Itzikel in heaven about his son who was still alive. So he said to Rashi, my son is very holy, studies a lot of Torah. Rashi says, there's a lot of people who study a lot of Torah. So he says he fasts. He would fast many fasts and spend the entire days in prayer. So there's many Jews that fast and spend the whole day in prayer. Then he said he made a lot of Baalei Teshuvah. He inspired a lot of people to become closer to God. And when Rashi heard that, Rashi said, now I understand. Meaning you can be holy and you can study a lot of Torah and you can pray a lot and fast a lot, but that alone doesn't make you worthy in heaven. The angels should be excited about you. When you bring a Jew closer to God, that makes in heaven the greatest excitement. What's the logic? It's simple. As a parent, what's the greatest thing you could ever do for a person? You help their kids. You help someone's kids, that person feels indebted to you forever, right? There's a lot of things that we can do for God. We can pray to God, we can do a mitzvah for God, we can study Torah. But the greatest joy that we can give God is when we bring one of his children closer to him. Imagine not just a pay thing for a person's kid. Imagine a person's in a fight with their kids. Imagine there's a family feud going on. Imagine there's a family feud going on. And you bring the kids together, they're able to talk to each other. You broker a peace treaty. Do you know what kind of great, unbelievable thing that would be? Imagine there's a Jew that's distant from Hashem. There's a child of God that's distant from his Father in heaven. And you bring that child close to God. In heaven, could there be any greater appreciation for that? There's nothing that can give God more joy than bringing his own children closer to him. I'm going to go straight to my closing story. I want to say this idea. That's the whole purpose. That any Jew, especially when a Jew is distant from God, you're distant. That doesn't mean that you're a sinner. I mean, you're a sinner, but that doesn't mean that you're helpless and that we write you off and we say, get out of here, throw rocks at your car. No. You're a sinner. That means that you create even greater pleasure to God if you would do a mitzvah. And we know this. A person doesn't put on tefillin normally. They put on tefillin when it's not comfortable for them, not easy for them. I put on tefillin every day. Okay, big deal. So I put on tefillin every day. But a Jew that doesn't do it, does it. You know how much nachas that gives God? A Jew that doesn't normally do a mitzvah, doesn't normally come to synagogue, and they come and they pray and they spend time. The greatest joy you can give God is bringing one of his children close to him. So this is want to show you the following closing story. Now with the Chabad rabbi that encompasses the idea beautifully. There was a Kiruv rabbi in Israel. It was Chaim Weintraub. So I've shared this story before. It's a very beautiful story. He's somewhere in Israel. And he's involved with teens that are, at-risk teens and teens that are a little bit off the derech. He has an organization to help the teenagers. And in the religious world, we say off the derech is an expression for children that are not religious anymore. They grew up religious and then they stopped being religious, and it's a very difficult thing. Anyway, this rabbi, Reb Chaim Weintraub, had a 3-year-old son who was in school. He was 3 years old. He wasn't feeling well. Told the teacher when he finished, he said, go lie down. He went to go lie down. He went home, he went to go lie down. And he never woke up. Passed away, 3 years old. Terrible tragedy. A 3-year-old child should die. It's a terrible, terrible tragedy. So some of the students, some of the teenagers that Reb Chaim was working with at the time came to make a shiva visit. They came to visit their teacher, their rabbi, they were close to, that was sitting shiva for his son that passed away suddenly. A beautiful, healthy 3-year-old boy suddenly died. So they said to Rabbi Weintraub, in the shiva home, we decided, we're talking amongst ourselves, what can we do, in honor of your son? And we decided that we're going to make a resolution that this Shabbos, the Shabbos of Shiva, we're all going to keep Shabbos in memory of your son. We're going to keep Shabbos. Normally they were hanging out, watching TV, going out to clubs, whatever they're doing on Friday night. We're going to keep Shabbos. We're not going to drive. We're not going to watch TV. We're not going to smoke. We're going to keep a Shabbos in honor of your son. And he was overwhelmed with emotion. He was hugging them and he was crying with them. It was very, very emotional. And after they leave, one of the other people that was sitting there in the Shiva home started to make fun. Like, big deal, one Shabbos. These are kids that are not religious anymore. These are kids that are sinners. You're so excited, one Shabbos. And next Shabbos, they go back to doing whatever terrible things they were doing. So Reb Chaim, Rabbi Weintraub, said to this other guy as follows. Do you know how much I would give to have one more Shabbos with my 3-year-old son? One more Friday night that I could walk home from shul holding my son's hand in my hand. What I would pay. I'll give everything I own for one more chance to put my son on my lap and we sing Shalom Aleichem Friday night and have him sitting next to me when we're singing the songs and making Kiddush. I'll give my house. I'll give everything I have for one more time to hear him show me his parsha sheets, what he did in school, and talking about his week. I'll give everything I own for one more Shabbos with my son. And now God will have one more Shabbos with his sons, with his only children. Could there be any greater nachas than that? That, my friends, is a lesson, the miracle of the talking donkey. God could have been effective. God could have said, why waste my time making a miracle? I'll send an angel and the angel will talk to the Bilam and say, don't go. Would an angel alone be enough to maybe change Bilam's mind? No, because an angel is not changing its nature. An angel is not amazing. So God said, I'm going to change nature. Erev Shabbos, I'm not going to take in Shabbos, says God. I'm not going to rest from all the work of creation until I go to the furthest extent possible and create new miracles that never existed before and create new channels and new efforts to do everything I could possibly do to try and help one person become better. And that's the lesson for us from the talking donkey. Every time we read that story, remember, God's willing to change the world to try and help one person. What am I willing to do to help one person? Okay. Good night, my friends.